As part of that, some 5,000 Board of Education photographs have been digitized and are available on the Newark Public Library website. I think you will have great fun going to the website, looking for digital resources, and beginning to prowl through those photographs, finding yourself and your friends and perhaps parents as well. The second is, as the exhibit upstairs, which is really a terrific exhibit, sparks memories. Perhaps you will come back on April 24th. There is a flyer out there. It's being billed as 5-minute memories with my Newark story. And it's an opportunity to record your own memories about Newark, about being a student in the Newark schools, and recording that for the future. So come back on Tuesday, April 24th, 2018, pick up a flyer on the way out. It's also my task to introduce Marion Bolden, who hardly needs introduction in this group. Marion, as you know, is a born and bred Newarker, a teacher, administrator in the Newark Public Schools for some 40 years, graduate of Barringer High School, then went to Montclair State. No, Southside High School, excuse me, Southside High School. No, she'll correct that. Malcolm S. Shabazz, Southside High School. Boy, her first teaching job was at Barringer High School as a mathematics teacher for some 14 years before going to Arts High and overseeing the math and science department at Arts High, but continuing to teach. She became superintendent of the Newark Public Schools in 1999 and served through 2008. I hope she tells a story about how she got her job back in 1968. I don't know whether that's your plan or not, Marion, but she made a real difference here. I started noting adjectives, words that describe Marion. I'm sure you could add to this list. I noted pragmatic, efficient, focused. If something needs to be done, Marion will figure out a way to do it. But at the same time, she's always honored the individual, honored the teacher, honored the student, honored the past as a way of preparing for the future. And in her retirement, she has led the effort to collect materials related to the Newark Public Schools in quite a stunning way. And Marion, we look forward to your comments now about the Newark Public Schools Historic Preservation Committee.
Thank you, Tim. And it's okay to make that slight because you said Barringer. Because I went to Southside High School, and I am an alum of Southside High School. But I also taught at Barringer High School for 14 years. So in truth, I spent more time at Barringer than I did at. And someone made a comment, I couldn't cut it if I had gone to Barringer. I'll remember that, Mr. Lippert. Well, anyway, good evening. I'm glad that so many of you came out to share in the exhibit. Before we start, I'd like to ask the Newark Public School Historic Preservation Committee board members that are here to please stand. Now, hard work that they do. We are a volunteer group. I've asked 3 of the board members to sit here on the panel because as a change, I'm not going to just go through the little slideshow. I'm going to allow you to ask questions if they're relevant, and then I'll have a panel here to answer those questions because I won't be able to answer all of them. So anyway, let me also thank the Newark Public Library because the exhibit, I think, turned out very nicely. What do you think? Yes. And a week ago, I was so nervous. So I don't know if Dan is here, but Claudia is here. Dan and Claudia is the curator. Claudia, you want to stand up? Great job. And Dan, they're a team. Okay. And Beth is on our committee, but also did an awful lot in terms of helping at the library. And Tom, the wine man, was also very helpful. All right, so I'm going to go through this quickly. Those of you that haven't had a chance to go upstairs and see the exhibit, please make sure that you do that. And it's funny because people ask me, how did you get into this? I remember you as a high school math teacher. Yes, I was a math teacher, a math director, a superintendent. And I always say that I'm the preservationist and that the others are the historians, but you can't even do this work without being a little bit of a historian. And so what happened, let's see, all I got to do is press forward, right? It was in the math department at the technology department. All right, so that's our logo. The mission, you can read that. You can read the goals and objectives. And we are very focused in terms of what those goals are. Every year we check off something that we've accomplished. But I really want to get to how this all started. And it's that man right there. Anybody recognize him? Yeah. Barringer High School, and give my props to Barringer High School, is the third oldest high school in the country. Barringer High School has an archive room. And Sal DiGirlando and Pat Restaino were retiring and very concerned about the archive room and how it was going to be preserved over time. And came to my office, because I was then superintendent, or maybe almost superintendent, I don't know, maybe I was the associate. But we went on a mission to make sure that everyone knew the kind of work that was being done in the archive room. There are Barringer people here that work on that archive room every Thursday. And we established a policy that that archive room would be there forever. We hired students that would come and work during the summer. And he was the impetus between, I think, for the creation of Newark Public School Historic Preservation Committee. He said, you should be doing this for the rest of the city. And so that's really what happened. That's still Mr. Restaino. You can see how much reverence I have for Mr. Restaino. He was a social studies teacher at Southside High School. I didn't know who he was. He was there when I was there. He said we should do walkthroughs, and we started to do walkthroughs in the schools to look for and to identify artifacts that we did not want to be thrown away. And believe me, let me just say this to you, that Newark, as one of the oldest cities in this country, does not do a good job in terms of respecting its history. Does not. You can go to Boston, you can go to the cities in Connecticut, and when you drive into the city, it speaks to their history. That's why I have so much respect and regard, Tim, for the Newark History Society, because there was no historical society representing Newark until the Newark History Society was organized now almost 10 years. The Barringer Archive is, stand up. You're one of the main people. Every Thursday she's there. And kids do their research there. So with me, I was superintendent, and one of the secretaries walks into my office and says, do you know they're throwing away some historical artifacts, and maybe you don't want that to happen? And I said, what are you talking about? And she said, well, there are board minutes that are written in German. And I said, well, no, we can't throw that away. I am not a historian, I became one. I recognize enough to know that you can't just throw away our history. And so we began to put a policy in place that you have to have a historian or a librarian at your school, and before you throw something away, you pass it through the librarian to see whether or not it's something that should be discarded. So when you look upstairs, a lot of what's there are things that have been contributed to the Newark Public School Historic Preservation Committee. What you see there is a picture of the Barringer Archive Room. It's one room. When I first went there, it wasn't as organized as this. It is a number of years that they've been working on it. That's Sal DiGirlando. He's here. In fact, they're supposed to be sitting here. Sal is supposed to be up here. Dr. Raymond Lindgren is supposed to be up here. Bill May is supposed to be up here. Dr. Lindgren at Eastside High School, 1966. Bill May, Southside High School, 1960. He doesn't want to tell you, but he graduated with me, so it's no secret. And Barringer High School, Sal, what year? 1960. And there are many of you out here who are also alum. Here's a picture of, in fact, I saw this only 2 months ago. I went over to Barringer and Sal said there are things that we have that need a permanent home. What do you do with an artifact like this? Do you throw it away? No. You try to find a place that will respect it, and so when we're finished, you'll understand what it is that our mission is, what we're actually trying to do. Oh, this is a quiz for you. Name that school. I'm only putting schools that still exist and that are still standing. And what? State Street? Ann Street? And you said I couldn't make it at Barringer there, Bob? South 10th Street, which is down Harriet Tubman. If you step back from the curb, it still looks just like that. So there are two archive rooms. There's the Barringer Archive Rooms, which I've shared with you, and then there's the Newark Public School Historic Preservation Archive Room. And what do we have? We have records, ephemera, artifacts, furniture. We have things in the Malcolm X loading dock. They're scattered all over, and what we're trying to do is consolidate and to finally have a Newark Public School museum. That's what the goal is. At Harold Wilson, we have those big box containers that look like from the waterfront, because there are artifacts that the state told us not to discard, and we have no place to put them, like cornices that were on Robert Treat, fireplaces that people would pay an awful lot of money for, but we want to hold on to them, see if we have some use for them, or someone else may have use for them. We have reliefs of Robert Treat that the Robert Treat Hotel wants, and so hopefully we'll find a home for it there. Most of what I'm going to run through now are images, just so that you can see what it is that we do. This is the Malcolm X Shabazz Archive Room. We're open on Tuesdays from 11 to 2, and the room doesn't look like this now. It's much more congested. You know, for 2 years we had no home at all. We were at State Street for a minute, we were at Warren Street, and when Warren Street closed, we were in a hiatus and we couldn't do very much. And so we have moved from Warren Street to Malcolm X Shabazz, and these are just images of the inside of the archive room. And there's another quiz. The gentleman on the top, does anybody recognize him? It's Mr. Landolfi. You would know that because he's a Southside graduate as well. But how many of you knew that we had, Mr. Landolfi was the National Principal of the Year in the United States of America in 1964. Gaither, you knew that, right? Yes. Freed. Yes. Freed was the vice principal. Name that school. Again, all of the schools I show you are still standing. Maybe not. West Side? Fourteenth Avenue? No, it's not 14th Avenue. That's what he said. I'm not making this up. That's how it looked originally. There's furniture in the archive room. There's stuff in the archive rooms. It's stuff we have. We need to organize it. We need to catalog it. We need to make it look like Barringer High School's archive room. And that's what we're trying to do. Oh, they're already on. You don't know this one either? This one, come on, is easy. It's Franklin. It's Franklin. Yes. If you look at the front of it, it's very distinctive. We have tons of plaques that have been taken down off of buildings. There's no place right now for them, and we're trying to find a home. We have photos that are contributed to us, and I have to give kudos to the Wickway High School Alumni Association. They do a great job in terms of communications, and through their bulletins, I get a lot of artifacts that are mailed to our post office box. They call, they give us pins, they give us photos. You know, people don't want, I have to say, people don't want to die and have their things thrown in the garbage. They want them to be respected. So if they have a yearbook that your kid said, we don't want this, find a home for them, we will find a home for them. You know, people send us things that I look at and said, what am I going to do with this? But I'd rather have you give it to us and have us decide we don't need it as opposed to throwing something away that is significant. When Pat Restaino and I were doing walkthroughs, I think the first year, we went to 15th Avenue. Remember when they closed 15th Avenue? Teachers called and they said, you should come over here. By the time we got there, the dumpster was full. And all of the things, I said, well, did you throw away that Duquesne, or there was an old projector from the 20s. It was at the bottom of the dumpster. And the moving guy said, there's nothing we can do because it was full. You know, Pat Restaino almost cried because so much of, and the teachers had enough sense to call us. But you know what? It's not necessarily malicious. It's you don't know. But if you do know and people are educating you in terms of those things that are important, you hold on to it. You look at our school district today, it's not the same as it was. And so there are things that we've had, things that we cherish, that we shouldn't allow to be thrown away. There should be a place where you can go and see the artifacts from Barringer High School, or East Side High School, or West Side High School. Or even I look at Science High School and say, you guys aren't that old, but you have a history. University High School has a history. So those are the things that we're trying to do. We have so many photos, we need to organize them. So if you have something that you think is significant and you trust us with its care, name that school. Still there? Yes, it's still there. You can't see the screen. Okay. You were there for a while, weren't you? Well, I guess you should have recognized it then. You were punished. Those are the hot plates that we got out of Bergen Street School in the teacher's room. I was asking, I said, were they still using them? They looked like they were still using them. I don't know. And then, what else? Yes, Baxter Terrace is named after this gentleman. I have this slide up there for a reason. James Miller Baxter, 1845-1909, was the principal of the colored school in Newark, State Street School. And he came to Newark as a 19-year-old, a graduate from a Quaker college in Pennsylvania. He was 19, he started as a teacher. In less than a year, he was promoted to the position of principal of the colored school. A very small number. Here's State Street School, a very early picture. You know, when Beth, when I took this off the website, it didn't have a date, but I looked at the cars. So what year do you think those cars are? The 30s? So it's probably, yeah, the 30s. About. On that building, there's a plaque that gives tribute to James Baxter. He's not here, but we met the great-grandson of James Miller Baxter. And in his basement, he had all of this history. I mean, a lot of it wet, moldy, but we knew that there were things in those boxes that were significant. And after 3 years, he gave them to us, or he lent them to us. And so we've organized them, and we found so much rich history and information that we didn't know. And until you have someone give you or share, you just don't know. I didn't know James. In fact, there's so much misinformation out there about James Baxter. Someone did a dissertation. I mean, it's huge. And he suggests that James Baxter had 4 sons and 1 daughter. That's not true. We found by looking at birth certificates and records, he had 2 daughters and 3 sons. And in the census, I don't know what year it was, Bill, instead of writing the name Grace, they interpreted it as George. So they gave him credit for having 4 sons and 1 daughter. And then you have to, of course, as a historian, you get obsessed with trying to find the truth. And I said, I'm a math teacher, I don't do this. But you want to know the truth. And so the grandson gave us the artifacts, and we have been combing through them and find out about his daughter, Grace Fenderson, who most of you don't know who she is. So we're going to do some work with the history of James Baxter and try to get that building that is now vacant to be the museum. Now, do you see that picture? The only picture I had ever seen of James Baxter was that first iconic one. In that box, in fact, Bill May sent me the picture, and he said, "Are you sitting down?" And I said, "No." He said, "Look at this picture." So I'm looking at it. He's waiting for me to discover. And we're looking to find more. James Miller Baxter, we found him in here. Anybody see him? Is that him? No. And now we're trying to figure out. We think it's the white box. So we have research to do. Then, this was the one that I was most excited about. That is also James Miller Baxter, when he was about 19 years old. And so, and we looked and combed for pictures forever, and we have those. I don't know that we have one or two other photos, but when we do a presentation on the Baxter family, it's called the anticipatory set, teachers, you will see them then. In his collection, W.E. Du Bois, signature. Roy Wilkins, signature. Did we find Thurgood Marshall's signature? He's in the photographs. But I'm just saying there's a whole lot that was in that collection. And the Landmarks Preservation Committee, and that group is here, we're looking to place this historic site. What, Mark, what's the right word for what? Just putting the plaque in front of the house is sufficient. Okay. We're looking to put the plaque in front of the house. That's where James Baxter and his family lived up until 1970s. He was there he was there for a long, long time. His daughter lived there. See? You were next to royalty. Yep. No, Newark. No, we're only talking Newark now. We only talk Newark here. Well, I don't know what you're talking about, Montclair. Steve, I'm just showing you things that we got like in the last couple of days. We invited Steve to sit at one of our meetings. He said, well, did you ever see a photo of the two Barringers side by side before they imploded the second one? I had never seen it. Last week he shared this with us. Didn't mean to do that. I want the Barringer. I want Barringer back. I am. Am I not?
Nope. Passed it.
No.
Keep going.
I messed up. It's all right.
You can catch it before. Yeah.
Not side by side. But I'm saying 2 days ago, we got that image. All right, now I want to go forward, right? Okay. You saw the iconic photo of Martin Luther King at Southside. Neither of these two are those photos. Others of you may have seen it, but I didn't. So when I asked at Southside, the archives, they sent me these. So, and they have many more. They have Malcolm X. But if you don't ask, you're not going to ever discover what rich history is in those buildings. And then charge somebody with making sure that they maintain it. This is the one that's upstairs, right? And I didn't know that it was Bergen. I went to Bergen Street School, but not in 1945. I was born in 1946. I went there in 46, right, Bob Lippett? Thank you. But here's what it says on the top. It says, I wish I knew. One of the things that happens as we receive materials, we have no clue because people don't write on the back and identify the school and the date. So that's something that if you're not doing it now, you should begin to do. And then I admonish people about not doing that. And then I went home because I lost a friend, and I was looking through the photos, and I said, you haven't identified one of those photos. So that's something else that I'm doing as well. My daughters will have no idea who these people are, and they'll throw the pictures away. They don't mean anything to them. So it only takes a minute. It's something that you should consider doing. And I wanted to go back to went to Bergen Street School. When I went to Bergen Street School, African American students didn't sit in the front. The boys sat in the back and the girls could sit in the middle, but you couldn't sit in the front. So yes, that was the practice at that time. It changed over time. But that doesn't mean I don't show the picture. So there's an attempt upstairs to even show immigration and how the city changed over time. But one of the points I was trying to make is identify your photos. So what are we doing? We're trying to do some publications. One is available right now, Distinguished Alumni, Volume 1. And what happens is when you do a book like Distinguished Alumni, people look at it and say, well, how come you don't have this individual in here? And Barbara Kukla edited that for us because you don't know everything. And it's an ongoing process. And so now we're going to do Volume 2, and we've got about 20 people that were omitted, or not just omitted, we just didn't know, we didn't discover. And we're not full-time paid historians. When Clem was here, Clem said he was going to give me 3 graduate students. That would have been great. So we have to go and get some kids who are hungry. You know, you have to have an appetite to do this. You know, you can wake up one morning and say, I don't want any part of that. And then on another day, you get obsessed with the history and the learning. So this is the next publication. It's a chronology of the history of the school district. It has in it all of the schools as well. And Dr. Lindgren is the lead editor on that one. The Baxter family story is going to be another publication. And how can you help? You help by coming tonight. You can join the Newark Public School Historical Preservation Committee. It only costs $25. If you want to give more, you're welcome to do that. No one's going to say no. Join your alumni association. Oral histories. You know, very often we have people that, like Dr. Flagg. We just lost Dr. Flagg. She was almost 100 years old. Fortunate for us, because of some of the work that Barbara did with her book, there are some oral histories. But once people are gone, there are things that you would love to have answers for that it's gone forever. So we were even doing some recording tonight. So you'll see us and ask questions, because something that could be so small as seemingly insignificant could mean an awful lot. Now, one thing that is happening to us, and I don't know really how to straighten this, we are not the Newark Public Schools. We are part of, we started out as a partnership. But I get the calls because as Newark Public School Historic Preservation Committee, they ask me all the questions, and we don't have the staff to answer the questions. We have some of the history in the archive room, but there has to be a way to merge the public school and what we do, and for somebody to be able to answer those questions. So we're looking to be able to help facilitate those kind of discoveries as well. How can you contact? Has anybody gone to our website? Okay, it's under construction, but it's a lot better now. Right, guys? Yep. Facebook page we have, post office box, and you can come to the archive room by appointment on Tuesdays, generally from 10 to 2. If nobody wants to come and it's a day I don't want to go there, then there will be nobody there. There's a lot of time. And then you're on 100 many other committees, but we are absolutely on a mission to save our history. I'd like to, Gaitha gave us a great we have in our possession from Ridge Street School on loan photos of every class from Ridge Street School from 1913 to 1960 almost, right? And it has every name on it. And what did she tell me? I had to get it because the principal said throw it away. And there are enough teachers who said, no, why do you think so many teachers have those desks in their basement? Because they're throwing them away. I wish more of you had saved the grandfather clocks, but I found 5, so we're going to have one. So those are things that are very, very important. There's someone who wants to give our Historical Preservation Committee a gift, even though he's not a Malcolm X Shabazz, Southsider. Come on up, Bob Lippett. Tell him what it is.
It's a bat that somehow got in my house from the, who remembers this, the South Market Street Playground. South Market Street Playground. If you're under 70, you probably don't remember it. But it says on here, Newark Board of Education. And in those days, young guys like myself would take bats home and keep them, I guess, for some reason or other. So I'm going to make the donation, $5,000. I don't want the money, but that's okay. That's okay.
Nice back. Thank you.
From Newark Board of Education.
All right, Bob.
It's a hit a home run. Thank you. And we got golf clubs from Wickway High School. And right now, today, if you were to go to some of those schools that are well over 100 years old, you will find a lot of artifacts that need to be identified and saved. We want schools to preserve their own history. I would prefer to go to a school and they have their own little archive room, like Ann Street. Ann Street has an archive room almost as well maintained as Barringer High School. But in the event that they don't, we ask them to give to us. What you see upstairs is an example of artifacts from the beginning of time with our public schools, and hopefully State Street School will become Newark Public School Historic Preservation Committee's museum. So help lobby and advocate for that as well. I don't know if you have any questions. I was supposed to stop and allow you to ask questions. Anybody have any questions as to what you can do, or just ask them a question, make them feel good?
No, that's fine. That's fine.
That's fine. East Side, no questions about East Side? You don't care whatever happened to East Side? Yes. I've seen, like, Columbia has an area that shows the history. In Trenton, because they're tearing down the high school, Trenton hired a full-time archivist. So somehow people are becoming aware that there are structures that probably never should have been torn down, but they weren't maintained. So yes, there are other school districts that do it. But we had the state come in and look at the archives, and they said there are not nearly enough school districts doing what we're doing. Now, and of course, we're older. We go back a lot further, but many districts go back. And they said that they are not preserving. Now, there is a law that some things should not be thrown away, that the public records should be maintained. There's not enough people to monitor that. You throw away your records, who's going to come in and lock you up? Nobody. So, you know, there has to be an awareness of it. Because when I said it was not malicious, it's not. Who do you think I get more phone calls from in terms of staff at a given school? Not the principal, the custodian. Do you think Bolden wants this? And then they'll tell me what it is. And then sometimes I get it, and sometimes it doesn't make its way to me. Because they had this old typewriter, I never got it. And then when we had our artifacts at Warren, and we couldn't go in there, what artifact do you think, I want to say pilfered, I shouldn't, it was stolen, it was, what artifact do you think they stole? Yearbooks. to sell, some to sell, and some to say, that yearbook has my mother in it. I want that yearbook. We had a Gene Campbell yearbook and photo with him playing basketball. Gone. And so what did I learn? Never put the original out there. Take a picture of it, put it out there. You know, so there are little things that you learn over time. But you have artifacts somewhere. And if you don't have to give them to us, but all I'm saying is cherish them. Don't throw them away. Yes, question in the back. Yeah, we had it on the list. Landmarks had a yeah, to save it. Right. Warren Street was on the list. We were trying to get it on the National Historic Register. It has been sold. I don't know if we're going to be able to be successful in stopping the demolition. I'm on a mission to save State Street. We have others on that list. Cleveland. Look how beautiful Cleveland is. So we have to move quickly, and you can't save all of the schools. It was funny, Richard Camerari was saying that just saving schools for the sake of saving schools is hoarding, that you need to have a reason for saving them because they're architecturally significant. You can repurpose and save them. You look at High Street. High Street should be Newark's, like Chicago, the mile, the 100, because it was so beautiful. And so those things that you can save, we need to get busy and do it, because there are very few really historic buildings. There are churches and there are schools. And so as many schools as we can save and put on the register, the better. So, everybody, when we say let's stop some of this, just become a little more vocal, and sometimes you can preserve a building. There was one other question, and I'm going to give some of you a chance to get back upstairs. Yes? I know the name. I know the name. Well, and you need to do something about that. There's nothing there.
Don't tell.
Well,
When you get there.
here, I'm going to go full circle. The point I was trying to make earlier is that we should cherish our history. Doesn't mean that every person's name is going to be on a plaque, but you just don't want someone to come in and throw away your history. The only high school that I visited that has every principal who was ever there is Eastside High School. I mean, you go in from the very beginning, when I came to central office, the superintendents weren't there, and it wasn't just for ego, it was for history. People want to know, who was the principal? When was their first African-American principal or superintendent? And so we just put them up there because it's part of our history. And so you can make a difference, right, Claire Roth? Claire had some stuff and gave, and we're sharing it with the Barringer Archives. So that's my point. And Mr. NTU, John Abigon. Arts High.
Marion?
Yeah, you can respond, Dr. Levy.
I don't know. You raise a very good point, John, and we would just urge you, you've all now been deputized by being here. If you see something, please say something. When
Do
the state
something,
took
right?
over the Newark Public Schools, you will recall that Dr. Hall came in and talked about how deplorable our schools were, and she made a commitment that she was going to spruce up Shabazz, and she was going to totally repaint the auditorium. Thank God Mary Bennett was the principal of Shabazz and said, you can do all the painting and we love it in the auditorium. You will not touch the Ring of Honor and you will not touch the murals in the back of the stage. We've had other people talk about, oh, that's segregationist, it's racist, take this down, take that down. These are part of our history. We have to continually fight. When we were designing the new Science Park High School, Mrs. Taylor and the students drove us crazy, but argued that the Rector Street building was very historic, and although they wanted their new building, they loved their old building. We designed a new school building that would have space to move the Art Deco murals from that building into the new building. In the dead of the night, suddenly we were told the old building is structurally unsound, and without any warning, it was torn down and all of that Art Deco work was destroyed. Over the weekend, the students, the alumni of Science High School, were all scrounging there to get a brick from their school building. We have got to be vigilant. We have got to always find out what's going on. If Warren Street is going to be taken down, at the very least, we need to get into that building and see what artifacts need to come out that we can preserve.
We pretty much did a lot of walk through Warren. Most of it we have. But you make a good point about the murals. There is a policy now in place. It doesn't mean that's going to be honored. One of the things that we wrote in collaboration with the school district was a policy in bulletin about just that kind of thing. Don't paint over murals without someone saying it's okay to do it. And so you have to be aware and then make sure that new administration doesn't do it because they don't know any better. I went to Branch Brook. Branch Brook has a mural with all of the fairy tales, but it's in a storage room. And when they saw me coming, I said, I want to see the mural. They tried to cover up part of the mural because it had Little Black Sambo. I collect that. It's part of history. Remember I said to you, Gaitha, she has the Little Black Sambo book. So you don't have to hide this. We want to see what it is that is historic, where we've moved from. She showed me essays from kids saying why the book was inappropriate. I mean, there's so much to learn in terms of what goes on in the schools. So that mural always concerns me. But at some point, if the building implodes, what can you do? I mean, Wickway High School restored their mural. The Alumni Association restored it. And there are great murals in this city. And that's what you were pointing out. And we all have to be vigilant and make sure that things like that don't get discarded. Can't save everything, and do what we can. One more question. I think people are tired of hearing us, huh? Mm-hmm.
Not gonna leave.
Whoa. So pictures. All right. No more questions.
Joe Clark.
All right, I'd like to thank you for attending. Thank our group. Anybody else that I forgot to acknowledge, but I'm glad that you came. Help us do, it's good work, and if you haven't seen the exhibit, make sure you go upstairs and see it. Thank you.